As our MD would say, education is a staircase business. It's not an escalator business.
There is always room for different things to try out. So how does one manage between growth acceleration versus long-term financial stability for an organization?
Each company works differently, even if they're in the same domain. Each of them has their own ethos. Each of them have their own style of working, and the less we tamper with it, the better. I think I was fortunate enough at that point of time, and of course, even with the fundraising, I think I was not only representing finance, I was probably representing a lot others, including, of course, looking at IT from a very initial standpoint.
If not a CFO, what would have been your alternate career?
That's interesting one. I think
Hello everyone, welcome to the Expert Talk series from CFO Exchange by Zoho. I am Neil Vashne, your host for this episode. Today, we are at the CFO's office of one of the leading publications in the country. With 50 branches, they serve to more than 20 million students across 40,000 schools and educational institutions. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Saurabh Mital, the Group CFO of S Chand Publications. Hello, sir. Over the last 2 decades, we have seen rapid changes happening across all industries. And in the publishing space, also, we have seen a paradigm shift from traditional learning towards more digital adoption. And you took over the reins of a CFO around 2008 or 9. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, can you tell us a little bit about the change that S Chand has gone through, and also some of the decisions that shaped your career as a CFO?
so. S Chand has always been at the forefront of whatever changes are required in terms of publishing or education. And being an industry leader, we started doing e-learning modules for the Uttarakhand government way back in 2006. So it's not that it started. It started even before I joined, and that project was on, and they were working creating modules for classes 9 to 12 for the Uttarakhand government. It was a World Bank funded project. So I think S Chand has always been there, and post that, of course, 2008 we got into a joint venture with EMPGI, which is based out of Dublin, and they had some content in English and mathematics for the primary segment. We had content for the classes 9 to 12 segment. So we got together in the 50-50 JV in a company called S Chand Harcourt. We provided digital learning solutions to schools. We were successful in the Middle East market mostly because that's where the actual utilization of the products were. It was under the brand Destination Success, and that over the years lasted about 15 odd years. That went well. Of course, with the advent of COVID, things have shaped up slightly differently. Of course, the kind of digital learning that has come in the last 5 to 6 years has been completely a different kind of shift, where online classes, YouTube, that has taken over. So that the traditional smart class model, as they would call it, which was started by Educom, has fizzled away mostly. But now, of course, schools, all the schools are largely digitized because of COVID. They did not have an option. So every book that goes into a school has some kind of digital intervention, whether it is a QR code with an app that goes, whether it is a LMS that goes to a school. So as on date, traditionally, while books were going, now books are going with us as a book plus model. And of course, that's the way things have transitioned. Whether initially there was CDs started, then the QR code started, now the LMS is going with the books. So that's the transition that has happened over the last 15-20 years.
So you discussed about a lot of different ventures that you have tried with S Chand with the change in technology. So there is always room for different things to try out. So how does one manage between growth acceleration versus long-term financial stability for an organization?
See, I mean, long-term financial stability is the most important, and that I think we realized during COVID. Pre-COVID, so there are three phases of the organization that I have seen. There was one phase from 2006 to 2010-11 when we were running the company as a standalone entity and focused on growth. Growth was not a challenge during that period because a lot of private schools were coming up, a lot of state technical universities announced during that time. So growth, and a lot of engineering students were going out and getting degrees during that period. So 2006 to 2010, there was no challenge in growth. I mean, there was it was growing. Uh, I wouldn't say with too much of effort. The market was increasing because a lot of students were going to engineering colleges and doing MBAs. So there was no limit in terms of what you could do then. The second phase of the company, of course, 2011 onwards, was when we started looking at inorganic growth because once you reached a scale, you wanted to grow faster. So then 2011, of course, we got into a discussion to pick up private equity, and we raised money from Everstone Capital in 2012. And then we started the process of acquisitions. Between 2011 and 2016, we did 3 large acquisitions. The first one was Vikas Publishing in 2012, then New Saraswati House in 2014, and then we did Chaya Prakashni in 2016. But of course, the acquisition, each of them had a focus. Wherever there were gap areas in our portfolio, wherever where we were not present, that is the places we focus. So Vikas Publishing was strong in Hindi as a language. They had a higher education segment that was doing custom publishing, which is distance learning programs. So these were segments we were not there. So we acquired Vikas Publishing. 2014 New Saraswati House, of course, that had Hindi, that had Sanskrit, French. So these were the languages that, I mean, we were not present in the market. So again, it made sense for us to acquire that entity. Once we had acquired both of Vikas and New Saraswati, of course, our K-12 CBSE ICSE portfolio was largely complete. So there was not much to get into at that point of time. So we started looking at things regionally now. So India has a central board system, which is CBSE ICSE, and then you have the regional state boards, which are specific for every state. So we zeroed in on Chaya Prakashni. Chaya Prakashni is the market leader in West Bengal, and so we acquired Chaya in 2016, and of course post that we went public. In between, of course, we raised another round from IFC, which is the part of the World Bank, and so that was a phase where we were going very fast in terms of inorganically. So that from 2012 to 2018, we probably moved from a 120 crore company to, of course, about 700 odd crores within that period. So post that, of course, is a slightly different story. After getting listed and of course having raised about 400 odd crores from the markets, then we hit a couple of hurdles. We made a couple of wrong calls in terms of being very aggressive in the market. There were issues of NCRT and of course our own internal challenges where we had grown too fast, too quickly, and the basics were not probably taken care of at that point of time. And post 2019, even prior to COVID, we realized that the kind of growth had made us very inefficient in terms of working capital, in terms of utilization of money. So post 2019, we went back to the drawing board. We created a program called S Chand 3.0. We looked at every part of our P&L and balance sheet to ensure that we have to drive efficiency. We were sitting on 300-400 crores of debt at that point of time, and we ran into a couple of years of losses which we had never seen in the history of this organization. Again, largely on account of some mistakes that we had made. So post 2019, and of course accelerated by what happened during COVID, where we lost about 30-40% of our market share, we started working on consolidating all our locations.
A lot of other education platforms, I don't want to name any, but has that been, a competition for S Chand during COVID? Because it was there earlier as well, but during COVID, was that a major competition to you?
See, I mean, if you look at it from outside, it does look as if digital learning is a competition to what we do, but we have to understand which segments we are in. There's a K to 8 segment. Now, the K to 8 segment, uh, while learning went online, books were anywhere there. The only challenge during COVID was schools were not open. So the distribution of books was not very easy. So we lost market share where interior schools did not even open for online. That is the area where we actually lost a lot of. The bigger cities where people had access to delivery of books, there was no challenge. So we lost out market share in the very rural areas where probably schools didn't open at all, whether offline or online, right? That is the time where children dropped out, went to government schools, or did not even go to school at all for that period. So that's the 2 year challenge. But if you look at what happened in 22-23 is everything came back to physical. So if you look at K to 8 segment, I don't think so it got disrupted due to any of these digital interventions. In fact, post 22-23, there was a lot of, I would say, digital exhaustion that happened to urban and semi-urban areas, where people just didn't want to go on to Zoom or didn't want to go into an online class. I mean, we also got sick of webinars to be on at some point of time. So K to 8 segment did not get disrupted. What did get disrupted was the test prep segment, where we are not such a large player. It's basically about 30-40 crores of our revenue. That, yes, has got impacted because
Test prep by you mean NEET or any competitive exam?
Yes, competitive exams. Okay. Basically, what happened is during COVID in the last years of the 1920 onwards, you had a lot of YouTubers that came online, right? And these YouTubers were teaching kids, and it's not the K to 8 kids that have so much of access to devices.
Is that also a competition to the YouTube channels, because a lot of free content is also available even for K to 8? So that is that also
K to 8, not really. K to 8, what is happening is, if you're going to a school, they are basically 99.9% schools do not allow devices in the school. There the learning happens through the book, and even if you look at it globally, not too much is transitioned outside. In fact, we saw a report, I think so, one of the Scandinavian countries has actually gone back from digital to physical books. So K to 8 was not impacted largely. What did get impacted was, of course, the 11-12 segment, or the test prep segment, and the college segment. The higher education segment did get definitely impacted. What has happened is, college students are, the way college students learning is happening, the number of books that college students are buying are practically very limited. They are depending upon presentations, they have to do assignments. So in between, of course, it was still there, but now, of course, with all the AI, with ChatGPT, I'm sure most of them doing their assignments through ChatGPT. So people are not taking the effort to go and research on books and do their stuff. So that has definitely, a higher education segment has taken a big hit, but I think the K8 segment being almost 85% of our business, the impact on us is less as compared to the other companies.
So I have like two questions, which is based on the discussion that we had right now. So my first question is, so you raised capital twice, and then you also have multiple authors, and you have different stakeholders, because when you start, acquiring companies, you'll have a lot of stakeholders. So how do you typically manage so many stakeholders, and how do you keep them happy and also maintain profitability and your revenue also?
I don't think we thought about it that much. We raised capital thrice actually, 12, 15, and of course the IPO in 2017. And as far as I think stakeholder management, I would say of course there are multiple stakeholders to the whole organization. Authors have been around with the organization for, I would say, decades, and it was not such a big challenge to have them on board, because for them nothing really changed in terms of when we raise money. Nothing changed. Of course, the companies that we acquired, we of course ensured that all the key authors were taken into confidence much before we acquired the entity. So as and when we go and do the acquisition, prior to doing the acquisition, we would ensure that we met all the key stakeholders and they were on board, and only then, of course, we went ahead with the transaction because authors were critical to the authors, employees were very critical to it. In terms of customers, I think across three companies, the customer base is largely the same. In terms of whether it's schools or whether it's the channel partners, that largely remains the same. So again, the challenge there was limited. In fact, our challenge was for them because for channel partners to see that three entities are becoming one entity, and I mean not becoming one entity. Actually, it's becoming a group. So for them to ignore us was a bigger problem for them now. So we became so large that of course they could not delay our payments. So that has actually worked in our favor at times. Apart from that, I think our employee strength has been that people have been around for a long period of time. We have a very open management who's given, I would say, flexibility and independence to each one of the senior people to go out and do what we do. So, I mean, there is, the kind of management that we have, it's very, very flexible. It's very employee friendly. So, we continue to do what we do. And sometimes, of course, we don't have to think if we go wrong, what will happen, because they have that kind of confidence in you. So, that definitely helped us. And even in the entities that we acquired, initially we did try to make some changes, but what we realized is when you acquire an entity and integrate it, what is working, don't change that, but what you can improve, of course, is something that you need to work on after taking those people who are working on it into confidence. So the whole process of integration was also a process of discovery, and of course there's no cookie cutter model for any of these companies. Each company works differently, even if they're in the same domain. Each of them has their own ethos, each of them have their own style of working, and the less we tamper with it, the better. In fact, case in point, Chai Prakashini, I think we barely changed one or two people at the top, because of course when the promoters transitioning out, you have to make a couple of people have to come on board as professionals to run it, and that's the only change we made in Chaya Prakashini, and the fantastic way it has worked in the last 6 years. In fact, that was one key company which ensured that during COVID we had enough liquidity in the system to pull us through.
Okay, so I'm coming to my next question. So the publishing space in itself is a very capital intensive industry. So how do you maintain costs and how do you manage maverick spend that comes along with it?
Capital intensive, I would say, if you're talking about the working capital, yes, it is to an extent, but again, then that is very seasonal. So if you look at the so again, break it up into two parts. One is, of course, the regional state board. Regional state board is not like Chaya Prakashini, it's completely capital efficient. There, the working capital cycle is only 30 to 45 days. So I think that if we keep aside, if you look at the central board ones, the three companies that we have, capital intensive, yes, but it is only for a period from let's say September, October to Feb end.
So is that when you produce books?
Yeah, that is the period that we are producing books, we are promoting our books, and then supplying them to the through channel partners to the schools. Post April, I mean, we are March end and April onwards to July, August, we have money in the bank, so that's not really a worry. And in terms of fixed capital, I don't think so. It's a very, I think our gross block is very small as compared to the size. So that is not a challenge in terms. So capital is only there on the working capital side, not really on the capex.
Okay. So we spoke a lot about numbers, and I'm sure you would have got a lot about this, saying that CFOs are, people who just look at the numbers or maybe just look at the financials or your balance sheets, but we don't think so. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've transitioned your role as a strategic advisor as well for S Chand? Because you spoke about a lot of initiatives and a lot of JVs that you've done. So I'm pretty sure there must have been a lot of strategic decisions that has gone by it.
So I think I've been fortunate enough to have joined this company when I did, and I think from day one, I was never looked at a pure finance person. I was involved in multiple projects, whether it was initially when we were trying to set up an international university. Of course, that didn't go through. When we set up the JV, we did all the working around it, and even the JV, which worked like a startup in the beginning. I was not only looking at only finance. I was supposed to look at vendor management. I hired, in fact, closed the hiring of 150 top initial people in that company. So I was doing the HR work also. I was ensuring logistics and delivery of the items to the schools. So I think except for handling the content and sales side, a lot of work we were doing, the operation side, and whom we need to hire, and where we need to open up offices, strategic partnerships, kind of. So we were doing all of that. So from that standpoint, I think dealing with JV partners overseas, ensuring that the reporting is there, the planning is there. So I think I was fortunate enough at that point of time. And of course, even with the fundraising, I think I was not only representing finance, I was probably representing a lot others, including, of course, looking at IT from a very initial standpoint, because again, the initial ERP system that was running was not efficient, had to first get that into order. Then we, of course, in 2013 took a big bite and implemented SAP in a record period of 6-7 months. We were live probably June 14. Currently, we are looking at a CRM. Now people want to go for a CRM which gives you a lot of data and knowledge. So that is what we are actually looking at that point of time. So the use of technology in the last 8-10 years has substantially improved.
So you said you have like vast operations across the country. So being a market leader, so has being in the market for a long time help you to become the market leader, or how is that go for you?
See, as our MD would say, education is a staircase business. It's not an escalator business. And for education, things come with time. You develop your expertise with time, and people remember you, and your credibility, I would say, comes with time. It's not something that you can achieve in a very short period, and that we have seen multiple companies come and go in this segment, whether it was in edtech, whether it was in other businesses. In education, things develop over time, and it takes a minimum 10 to 15 years to establish yourself properly. And that you can see across multiple brands which have established them. They've been around for a long period of time. And those people who've tried to do it in a short period of time have seen the repercussions. So again, I think credibility once comes in, of course, you continue to focus on that, continue to give quality content to your customer, and ensure that you are helping that customer learn better, engage with them better. And of course, with the kind of content you are offering, if they get the results, of course, your credibility builds. That's the way it works. And of course, while it may be the impact of it only comes with proper feedback from schools, whether it is feedback from the principals, the subject teachers. So that whole process continues. And while we are supplying books to schools, it looks like just giving a product to a school. It's not as simple as that. We do thousands of workshops with schools. We engage teachers. We tell them about the product. We give them general training about how to teach a particular thing. General skills training we do with teachers. So we do a lot of work around that, keeping the school engaged, the teacher engaged, and of course, helping them do their jobs better. We provide them teacher handbooks on how to do things better. So it's not as simple as supplying a book. I mean, it's not that simple. Of course, the kind of quality content, the kind of quality digital content that goes into it, question banks that go into it, interactivities, quizzes, games that go into the with the content. It's not as simple as it used to be. Okay. And of course, with today's time, the kind of competition there are several. I think it's the kind of business it is. It's a very anybody can start a publishing business. It's got very low entry barriers because it's not very complicated. But to scale up beyond a point is very difficult, because to have that kind of reach across the country, it requires a lot of legwork, requires a lot of credibility with schools. And while you may be successful in one or two schools, to be successful in thousands of schools, it can only come with time and credibility.
Okay, so we discussed a lot about technology. I think you know what's coming your way, that is AI. So I just want to understand two perspectives about AI. So what will be the impacts of AI from business standpoint for any publication space, and what will be the impact of AI for children who are going to enter schools with AI? So they're going to start their education itself in the AI era. So can you just tell me a little bit about on both the sides?
I mean, I think for India, AI is still, while it's a buzzword, what's happening in schools, apart from children using devices to go into chat GPTs to ask a few questions, is still very initial stage. So impact on students, I think for the higher grade students, of course, they are using it as a tool right now. Uh, very few schools are actually teaching AI in a proper manner where they can, develop solution. I think Mayo School is the only one that has got a proper AI lab across, which they've implemented, and they've invested actually. So I think there is still a long way to go for schools to get their students onto AI. As a company, of course, there are several things that we can do, but of course, publishing being a slightly more traditional business, we are slow to catch up.
Okay.
And for us, I think major things, of course, we could look at is, of course, the whole content creation process could be shortened. The quality of it could be improved using AI. And of course, then the whole operations could use a lot of AI. But of course, having said that, I think, to be honest, we are still learning what to do with it.
So we also see companies, globally moving towards sustainable options and being very environmental friendly. So how does the publishing space, or maybe S Chand in particular, manages between profitability and sustainability?
See, for a publishing business, I think sustainability has always been something that, because they've been around for 80 odd years. I mean, S Chand has been around for 85 years. The subsidiaries we've acquired have been around for 50 plus years. So sustainability is, of course, probably within the DNA of the organization. And in terms of ensuring that, of course, we are more environment friendly, uh, we are, of course, moving our warehouses into slightly more rural areas. We're going to set up solar powered warehouses. We use paper which has been recycled a lot for our printing of books. So I would say, and so that's to the extent that we go. There's a lot of recycling that happens. We take back books, we recycle that waste that goes to the paper industry. So there are a lot of recycling also that happens in this.
Okay, and now we can relax for the bit, and we'll be moving on to our next segment, which is called Off the Sheets. So this will be more of an interactive session that we'll have. To start with, we'll have a small this or that session on your preference for personal investments.
Okay.
So, cash in hand or FD?
Neither. I probably do mutual funds.
Okay. So, mutual funds or gold?
Mutual funds.
Mutual funds or real estate?
For me, mutual funds.
Mutual funds or foreign investments?
For me, still mutual funds.
Okay, then we have a clear winner, which is mutual fund. Folks who are watching this video, we are not giving any sort of personal finance advices over here. So while we were discussing offline, you were telling me that you were from Sherwood College from Nainital. So can you tell us a little bit about your schooling days?
Yeah, so I was born and brought up in Nainital, which is a hill station and famous tourist destination for most, and which has a lot of schools, boarding schools there. And I started my schooling in Sherwood in class 2 onwards. I was a hostel boy for a long 11 years there. Uh, Very famous school where it's got a big tradition of people going into the armed forces. The first Paramveer Chakra was a old boy from Sherwood, Somnath Sharma. His younger brother eventually became the Chief of Army Staff, General V.N. Sharma. Of course, we had Sam Manekshaw, who was the only field marshal that India has had. So big tradition on having people in the armed forces. Of course, some famous actors also like Amitabh Bachchan also from the school. So, and of course, see, boarding schools have their different kind of traditions that go into it. It was a 125-year-old school set up by the Britishers. So it had its own system. Of course, football was something that was more of a craze in school rather than cricket. Cricket didn't have so much. Football was the only sport for that school, because the school used to play a lot of tournaments, whether it was within the town or whether it would go to and play other boarding schools. So a very different kind of, and I was there for about 11 years. Completely, I think I enjoyed my stay at the school.
So, any personality whom you look up to and why?
So for me, I think the only personality that probably I've looked up to most in my life has been my father. Uh, he was a surgeon, and I think he was the first surgeon in that district, and he was like, uh, if I have had some sort of success in my life, he was 10x that. So he was a completely, I would say, his kind of doctor I haven't seen in my life. And he's long gone now, almost 18 years now. But again, I think the kind of personality that he had, uh, I I really can't look up to anybody else apart from him.
So, if not a CFO, what would have been your alternate career?
That's a interesting one. I think at one point of time, I probably wanted to write and probably be a professor and teach. But I think my
I
calling
think then
of
you might have been an author in his chance for one of the books also.
possibly, but I think as early as class 8, I knew I would be a chartered accountant, and I was very focused around what I needed to do for that. Uh, of course, the internet was not around then. The only source of information would be newspapers, and that's the way you would get your information. And again, we were in a hill station where access to information was very limited, but still, I had it in my mind I have to be a chartered accountant. So that was always going to be there.
Okay, sir. So now we are moving on to our final segment, which we call it the CFO Gyan. So, can you give us a note or a couple of advices for the younger folks who want to take up a career in finance, and also for our new age entrepreneurs?
See, finance as a career, I think uh, the uh, the way things are moving, of course, a lot of lines are getting blurred in terms of the kind of specialization that you need. Because a lot of tools are already available, a lot of information processing is already happening on the machine. So, for anyone who's entering into any career, whether it's finance or others, a flexibility is important. You have to think on your feet all the time, and whatever you plan to do, you have to give it your all. You have to ensure that you're focused on to doing only that. Otherwise, what happens is that if you do it half-heartedly, things don't go through. And of course, in a career, you will have setbacks. You will have definitely make mistakes. You will have setbacks, and no one is 100% right. But what if you feel, if you get the gut feeling that something that you're doing is right, then you follow that up, because again, 9 out of 10 times you will surely hit.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us over here at your place and accepting to do this show, sir. And thank you so much.